Right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Inventory Base Academy webinar on selling yourself for inventory clerks. My name's Steve Rad. We've got Sean and our guest speaker Tim Wakelin on the call. Tim's going to spend the next half an hour running through his slides on how to better sell yourself as a professional inventory provider. We look forward to that, and we'll spare some time for Q&As as well. So of course, as always, if you have any questions, please post them in the questions section in the chat box, and we'll get to them when we can. Obviously, anything we don't get to, we will email across with full answers after the webinar. So for everyone on the call, you'll get the email follow-up with the recording and answers to everyone's questions as well. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Tim Wakelin.
Hi, and yeah, good evening. Thank you very much indeed, Steve. Selling yourself for inventory clerks is it's a big, broad subject, and I think that we're working in really interesting times out in the marketplace that we're in at the moment. I know from the last webinar that you were on here, I think it was about the tenant fee ban, which is a huge thing in our industry, and is going to have all sorts of different implications and repercussions across the marketplace. But there's lots going on in the residential lettings marketplace. And I've spent a lot of time over the last few years working with a number of estate agents and letting agents that look at a similar sort of thing. Is, you know, how best can they market their businesses to their customer base? Because customers are changing. The way that we like to do things is changing. The way that we like to work, the way that we like to buy, the way that we like to sell. And as business owners, you know, in the inventory world, we've got to remain absolutely at the forefront in order to get our voice out there. There's more competition, more and more competition in every single industry and every single business, and that competition is more and more available. The internet makes that possible. We can sit at our desks and we can decide what providers we're going to use for different products and services. And in some cases, we never ever need to see them. But we work very much in a people business. We want to be seen. We're not just about the technology that we have, whilst the technology that Inventory Base provides is absolutely first class. We still need to be there in front of the customer to let them know what it is we can do for them. So we have a few different challenges as inventory providers. First one, competition. There's lots of it in all sorts of different areas and locations. Big problem with that is everybody looks the same. If you look at inventory companies, what is the difference? Is there a difference that an agent can tangibly see, can feel, can understand, or when they look wherever it is they look to find an inventory provider, do they look the same? Or in fact, as in so many parts of the property world at the moment, is it the case that everybody looks just at price? You know, are you working in an area where all you hear continually is about how cheaply they can get the product or the service? And of course, tenant fee ban we've already mentioned, but that's certainly something that's causing some agents to think about the fact that, you know, again, it's possible for them to do this in-house. They can run and provide this service for themselves. So challenging times, but somebody once said, you know, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. So it's really a case of looking at what we do and trying to break it down into a way that we can provide a compelling proposition to our customers, or to the customers that we'd like to win. And I think as well in this, we're looking also at the fact that it's not just about winning customers, because obviously we'd like to do that. It's also about retaining the existing ones when they are possibly bombarded by different companies that look like they do the same thing that you do, but do they really? Is it really the same sort of quality? Is there the same integrity sitting behind it? So we need to win new we need to win new customers, but we also need to think about how we retain our existing ones. And in many cases, that also can be a sales job, or if you like, a resales job, as we have to go back when they ask us why they should stay with us, why they shouldn't move on to somebody else. Okay, so we need a compelling proposition. We need something that's going to really, you know, make a customer sit out and listen and think about what we do. And one of the key things that I think it's important to remember here is that being good at your job isn't enough. Being good at your job isn't enough. You can be the best inventory clerk there is. You can have the best eye for detail that there is, but you've got to expand that out into being the best salesperson, the best business owner. You know, running and working in your own business means that you have to be good at a variety of things. And I think that you can learn to be good at those things. You can find a way. You know, if you're very much an attention to detail person, and you've never been involved in a sales environment before, then you can jump on a webinar like this. There's huge amounts of instructional information online. You can pick that up and you can learn, you know, how best to present what you do to customers. But being good at your job isn't enough. A lot of people go into a variety of business thinking that, you know, they're very good at this, they're very good at that. Plumbers is a typical example. You may be absolutely brilliant at fitting a boiler, but getting new customers is completely different from rolling up your sleeves and doing the job. One thing to think about, I think, is for those of you that are already running businesses that have some customers and some clients, which I'm guessing is probably most of you, is what is it your existing customers like about what you do? Do you know? Have you ever asked them? Do you know why they stay with you? There's going to be some reasons there. There's going to be some compelling reasons there. And it's a great way of understanding what it is that, you know, your existing customers like, because you can almost guarantee that new customers will like the same things. New customers will be interested to use you for exactly the same reasons that your existing customers who have got to know you, who know a little bit about your business, for the same reasons that they use you. And you might be surprised, you know, that there could be within that things that you'd not thought of, things that you didn't realize that you do. You know, I can certainly tell you from my experience of sales that some of the best salespeople I have ever worked with didn't actually realize they were selling. They didn't realize they were selling. What they thought was that they were helping the customer. They had great relationships. They felt they got on really well with the customer, but they didn't actually realize or think about the fact they were selling to them. They found it that easy to do. So sometimes you might be doing things with existing customers that you don't realize, but a conversation with that customer, maybe a review, you know, if you've been working with them for a little while, have a review meeting. You know, you can find out some good, you know, potentially you might even find out some reasons why they might be looking elsewhere. And that's always good to preempt that, because then you can do something about it. But understanding what you're good at, why your clients like you is a great place to start. But don't assume just because you can do an inventory that customers are going to flock to you. There are lots and lots of people out there that purport to being able to do an inventory. And as we know, they're certainly not all very good. But again, when you're looking at agents don't want to have to work too hard at finding a supplier. You know, there are lots of people out there, so I don't want to work too hard at it. I don't want to have to try and understand too much about it. So you've got to get to the point, and using some good existing, maybe testimonials from existing clients, or understanding at least why existing clients like and use you, can be a great way of looking to sell to new ones. So don't assume that being good at your job is sufficient. It isn't. You've got to get a much more rounded view, a much more rounded way of being able to deal with customers and people, and then they will find out how good you are at the job. But that, a lot of the time, doesn't open the door in the first place. So if we're going to put our proposition together, we maybe need to think about 4 questions that we should ask ourselves. Question number 1, and I talk to a lot of people about this question, and that is, what do you do? What is it that you do? Because if you would tell me that you create an inventory, if I'm really honest with you, I'm probably not that interested. There are lots of people that create inventories. Let me give you an example. I started my career as an estate agent. And so when people ask me what I do, I used to tell them I was an estate agent, and that usually was a bit of a conversation stopper, and nobody was interested in chatting much further than that. I left the estate agency and I went into insurance. So then when I'd be at a dinner party, someone would say, what is it you do? And I'd say, I'm in insurance. And that was even worse than being an estate agent. So we had a little think about this whole idea of insurance and the fact that nobody really wants to buy insurance. But people are fascinated by risk management. So thereafter, when people ask me, what is it you do? I'd say, oh, I'm in risk management. And thereafter would ensue a conversation about what risk management was, effectively insurance. But it got people's interest. So you've got to think about what it is you really do, how it is you really help your customers, because it's not just about creating an inventory. It's about a whole host of services that you wrap around that. It could be about your attention to detail, certainly. It could be about your absolute desire to deliver amazing customer service. It could be about the speed at which you do things. But what is it that you really, really do? I think inventory clerks for me have always been the eyes and ears of the agent. You know, there's the job to do as an inventory clerk. There's the report to create and the things that you're involved in. And then beyond that, there's useful pieces of information that you can feed back to your client just to let them know if there's anything that could cause a problem as that tenancy starts. Because it's generally accepted that, you know, tenancies that start well will hopefully proceed well and smoothly. Tenancies that start with dirty toilets or something left in the garage or a loose stair carpet or any of these things, those sorts of tenancies where the tenant moves in and isn't happy, those kind of tenancies tend to have problems that will then carry on. So as inventory clerks, we're there to make sure that we do everything we can to help our client, the agent, set up the tenancy as smoothly as possible. So from our side, in the most obvious way, we do the job, we get the reports to them in a timely manner so they can provide them to the tenant and the landlord. But beyond that, maybe we provide a little bit of advice or thoughts about things that we see when we're at the property that could potentially cause a problem. Now, the client may or may not act on those things, but they will certainly remember the fact that you are there as their eyes and ears at that property before the tenant moves in. So understanding what it is we do, how we can help the client in their day-to-day is absolutely imperative when we come round to having a conversation. Because if we walk into an agent's office and we say, hi, we're an inventory clerk, they're going to probably have heard that before. And I know one of the questions that we've already had sent over to us is about the fact that a lot of agents say, well, I'm very happy where I am and I'm very happy with who I'm using at the moment. But we want to try and get beyond that. So think about what you do. Think about explaining it beyond the fact of just creating the inventory. Think of all of the functions that you provide in delivering this service, in running your business, because we are, at the end of the day, a support service for those agents that we're out there wanting to work for, and indeed the ones that we are working for. So think clearly about what you do. If you can be creative without sort of tipping too far off the scale at one end, but if you can be creative about what you do, creative in the way that you explain your product and service to a customer, what you really want to do is get them to ask you a question. How do you do that? And then once you've engaged them, well, then you've got their ear. You can then move forward with the conversations. And in moving forward with that conversation, one of the key things you need to think about is, what problem is it that you solve? What's the problem you solve for the customer? In order to really address this, you need to understand what your customer, what the agent does. Now, for some of you, you may have been involved in residential letting in the past, so you may have sat around that side of the desk and you know that business well. For others of you, you may never have done that. So it's important to understand the sort of challenges that a residential letting agent, the ideal client for your business, what are the challenges they have on a day-to-day basis? What gets them stressed? What takes them away from earning fees? I'd say inventories to both of those questions. But the other things that agents struggle with are staff levels. Okay, we know that we're working in a marketplace that for a lot of agents is a tough, highly competitive market. They don't have, staff. Well, they're not overstaffed. They're down to the minimum levels of staff that they need in their offices. Inventories are time consuming. To do it properly, to really do the job properly, by the time that you've gone out to the property, you've looked around, the reports have been created, they've been checked, there's a lot of time taken up in that. So staffing levels are absolutely key. It may be a nice idea from the agent's point of view that they might want to think about doing the job themselves, but is that really practical when it comes down to it? Booking inventories. How easy is it to work with your company? Again, if I have the smallest numbers of staff, I don't want to be taking a long time trying to book jobs in. I want a system or a service that allows me to do that simply and easily as the agent. So that could be something that could save me as the agent a lot of time. Again, agents tend to be rushing around. They don't tend to have a lot of time to do anything. So if your service can save me time, almost act like an external member of staff that I just need to use whenever you're there, then that's going to be something that's of interest to me. Other problems that you can solve for clients, already said about eyes and ears, but accuracy. Actually coming back to doing the job, that's your forte. You love accuracy. You love being on your own, looking around a property and making sure you take in everything that's there. There aren't many people that are good at that. I think that inventory is the role of the inventory clerk is way undervalued when it comes down to the quality side of what we do and how we do it. You know what to look for. You know that little thread that if you pull it, you find out as you move through the house a number of little things that aren't quite right. You know the little telltale signs that could be there to lead you to find things that I was going to say a normal person, but that somebody that isn't proficient at what we do would never find, would never see. So accuracy, but also the ability to look and then look again, which, believe you me, most people don't have. Desire to do the job. Letting agents, by their nature, a lot of the time are either front of office, wanting to go out and do a deal, or they're back of office, like to stay in the office and organise the management of the properties. A lot of the times there's no great desire to have to run out and do these jobs or to check things at properties, but it's what we do all of the time. So again, it puts us into that whole area of being this additional member of their team who is there whenever they need us. So problems that we can solve around staffing levels, around time management, around accuracy, quality of job, but we also, by using us as a third-party provider, we just are one step removed. We can make things easier for them when they're having discussions, possibly at the end of the tenancy or even over creation of inventory, that they use a professional independent company. That makes them look good. That makes them look good. So we can help our clients in a number of different ways. And this really is a key part of how we solve the problem. When we're talking to clients, we need to talk to them about the benefit to them in using us. And when I run face-to-face training sessions, one of the big things that we talk about is the difference between features and benefits. And so the key thing to remember really for today is that, a feature is and a benefit does. So a feature is something. The benefit of that is what the customer will buy from you. So how will your service benefit the agent that you would like to work with? What's in it for them if they start to use you? How are you going to make their life easier? What is it that they can get from you that will allow them maybe to do more business? Because the reality is, in using a third-party company to create these inventories, to do their check-ins, their checkouts, their midterms, they can get on with fee earning. And that's what they're there to do. And we can do what we're brilliant at and deliver this inventory service to them, this whole package of things that we can do for them. So understand the problems the customer has. Understand what they are. And, the list today isn't exhaustive. It may be that when you're in conversation with new customers, what you want to be doing is listening and asking the questions about the sort of issues that they have, and then deliver this solution to them. How can you help them? In fact, what you really want to do is you want to look at how you can help them better than anybody else. And that's really, really important, because if you're looking at, all of that competition that's out there, all of those other people that are going to be going in there saying, use me, use me, use me, you have to be different. You have to stand out. And some of your competitors in the market that you work in probably won't deliver a very good level of service. And you probably know who they are. You probably know exactly who they are out there. But there are going to be some people that you're going to be up against, some other companies, inventory companies, who actually do deliver a great level of service, are very good at what they do. Maybe they even have the same kind of values that you have in the delivery of the service that you provide. So how are you different? What's the difference that you deliver? So it's not enough, unfortunately, just to know the client's problems, be able to solve them, because other people are going to be doing that as well. Other people are going to be solving the same problems that you are. What you need to be able to do is to show them the benefit in using your business, and then explain why you're different or what it is that you do differently. And that could just be one thing. And it could be different for each and every one of you in the markets that you work in. So not only do you need to understand your client and what it is your client is going to require, you also need to think about your competitors. What do your competitors in your local area do? How do they market themselves? How do they advertise themselves? Why do some companies use them and not you? And I think sometimes we're a little bit too afraid of asking these questions, and we shouldn't be. Because if we can find out from clients, that aren't using us, maybe why they use somebody else, what it is that other company does. If we ask that question, we can learn, and we can then consider how and if and why we maybe develop our offering and what we do. So we need to understand the problem we solve for our customers. We need to know and be able to explain clearly how we solve it, what the benefit to them would be. And do remember that in understanding benefits, it's about the specific benefit to that client. So you may talk to one agency about how you can save them time and allow fee earners to be earning fees whilst you're doing what you're professional and proficient at. And for another company, that might be very different. It's not a one size fits all. People in agency and typically when you're walking into to a letting agent, you don't necessarily know who you're going to be talking to. You want to try and get to someone that can make a decision about your product and service. You want to have that compelling reason for being there, about what it is that you do. But you need to think about quite clearly how you solve a problem, but you need to have understood from the client first what their problem is. So don't assume the problem's the same for all of them, because it probably will be similar, but people will have different motivations. And one of the hard things is where maybe someone that has worked in the company has gone off and started an inventory business. Or it could be that it's a friend of someone that runs the inventory business. And it's important if we can try and understand that before we launch into our conversations, because how and what they're doing will influence very much what you say and how you say it. So all companies are different. They have different motivations. We have to understand those motivations. And the best way to do that is to ask questions. And don't be afraid of asking questions. You have to know when too many is too many, but a few key questions at the outset when you're in front of a new client should give you an understanding of what's important to them. Understand the problem, understand it could always be different, solve the problem for them, give them the benefit in using your business, okay? And that I come back to the fact that it's much, much more than, we provide inventories. You do an awful lot more than that. So think carefully about how you solve the problem. And then how are you different? What's the different thing that you do? Give you an example. I buy some shirts, or I tend to buy all my shirts from a company that gives me a 6-month money back guarantee, washed or unwashed. So how good is that? I buy my shirts, they're no more expensive than buying them anywhere else, and I get a 6-month money back guarantee, washed or unwashed. I've been buying shirts for this company for 14 years. I have never, ever returned a shirt, but I do like to know that if I wanted to, I could. So what could you do for the client, for this potential new customer, that isn't going to cost you any money, but is going to appear on the outset to deliver this incredible level of customer service, a customer service way beyond anything anybody else does? And one example of that in our industry might be that you give people an out of hours telephone number. Here's my out of hours mobile number. Please feel free to give me a call whenever you need anything. Now, I think it's highly unlikely anybody will book an inventory over the phone at midnight on a Saturday. But again, it comes back to the fact that actually, I like to know that I can get hold of you if I need you for anything. So are there things that you can do that make you appreciably different from all of your competitors in the marketplace? Things in some cases that aren't going to cost you a great deal of money to do, that show on your part a real commitment to customer service for for your customers that come on board, and things that may or won't be used with any great frequency. So coming up with that whole compelling reason and then making it a reason that is different, showcasing those benefits of using your business and maybe using some examples and testimonials from your existing customers gives a really compelling proposition. But remember, it's not just about creating the inventory, it's about so much more than that we want to talk to the customer about. And remember that reducing your fee is not selling. Reducing what you charge is just reducing what you charge. Selling is more complex than that. Selling is about showing the real value in using you, how you will benefit the customer if they choose you, and coming up with a set of very compelling reasons and a strong proposition around that. So we want to get away from this whole idea, which is, I know it's kind of prevalent in our industry, wherever you look about, fees and fees being brought down. Look at it from the point of view of value creation. Where do you create value for the client? How actually, how could that help them do more and create more value in their business? Because if you can do that, if you can actually have a positive effect on my business, what I do, and maybe the fees that I charge, then I'm going to be absolutely delighted with that. So look carefully at that. It's about creating value. It's about having a fee structure, that works and is effective in the local area. But it's not about just reducing those fees to get business, because we don't want to undervalue ourselves. Our job is a tough job, and we take a huge amount of responsibility on board. A lot of responsibility is pushed over to us, I think, sometimes from our clients, and we need to be earning. We need to show that we value what we do, and we charge a fair price, a fair fee for doing those things. So get that proposition in place. Use existing clients, understand new clients. Think about what you do, think about the benefits, get a unique selling point, get something that makes you different, and then practice it a little bit. Sit down and practice a little bit what you want to say to people. What is it you would say to them if they said, why should we use you? And when you get it to a point that you think it sounds really, really good, then go out and start talking to people about it. So connecting with clients. You've got to think about how you want to do it. And so the slide in front of you that you can see there says target client list. Do you want to work with everybody and anybody? I'm going to suggest to you that you don't. I think there are maybe some agents in the local area that you might not want to work with for a variety of reasons. There may be other businesses, people that, certainly private landlord clients with big portfolios. Who are the clients that you want to work with? You could have a scattergun approach to it, and that's absolutely fine, or you could create your list. And I think when we're looking at getting new business on board, what we want to do is create our list. Create our list, let's get contact details, let's get the name of the person that we want to be talking to in there. And let's seriously look at the ones that maybe we don't want to work with, the ones that aren't going to be suitable to us. Or look at it a different way around. Let's go for the low-hanging fruit. Do you know that there are any agents in your local area that are wavering over who they're using at the moment, that have indicated to you that they might come across? If there are, I would say get onto them. They'll probably be in the office till 7 this evening. Put the call in after this webinar. Don't hold off. But otherwise, get a clear list of clients, contact details, person to contact, and then work that list.
Tim,
understand what those agents are looking for. What is it they want? Ask them the question. Even if they're saying no to you now, no, we can't use you at the moment. A great question in that is, what would we need to do in order for you to start working with us? Is there anything that we could do for you that your existing provider doesn't, that would mean you'd give us a try? Ask those questions. Think about where your potential clients look for a new provider. Are there different publications? I mean, you know, print is definitely declining, but you know, is there something locally where you could advertise, local magazines, anything related specifically to property? Do they automatically go online? And if they do, well, how are they going to find your web address? Are there local associations for letting agents, you know, within the areas that you work in? Where do they look? Where could you be so they will see you? And when do they look? Are there certain times of the year that they might change their provider? I think a lot of the time it's very much about the fact that people will change their provider when they've received a bad service. So you effectively need to be in front of people all the time. It needs to be the easiest call in the world for them to get hold of you. So if you have a contact strategy that says, without overdoing it, you are regularly calling to see the agents that don't work with you, to give them a useful piece of information, drop something off to them, or just to say hello because you're building a relationship, then hopefully at the point that they are let down or they have a problem, you're there to pick up the pieces. Otherwise, in certain areas, when the student market takes off, companies start a few months beforehand to think about their inventory providers. Are they covered for this huge volume of work that's going to come in? Great time to get out and start speaking to them if you're in that student marketplace. But again, it could be something different in the areas that you are, you know, in the way that the market works in your local area. So think about when people look and be there for them. Why should they choose you? We've talked about that. Have your proposition ready. And how will you meet them? Do you want to meet them virtually over the telephone? Do you want to meet them at exhibitions? You know, all of these things work. I think they all work together. I think don't just choose any one of those. You know, a lot of the time we don't like cold calling, but hey, you know what? Pop in. As long as you've got something useful to tell me, you're not going to take up too much of my time, or you're going to get me really interested in what it is you've got to tell me, then fantastic. You know, agents will give you the time. They will talk to you if you can pique their interest. Back to how you can help them. So think about very carefully putting together your contact lists, who you want to work with, what their motivations are, how they're going to be looking, when they're going to be looking. You've got your proposition, and how you're going to bump into them. You know, how are you going to be there at a time that you can meet them and let them know what you do? So it really is a complete strategy that you've got to put in place. When we come back to meeting them, another thing that you might want to think about is creating yourself as the expert in your local area. Now, this is a huge thing, and you know, would take a lot more time to go through. But effectively, the internet allows us now to publish all sorts of different things in different ways, and gives us a reach that we've never ever had before. You know, as a single person running a business, I have this incredible tool which allows me to connect with so many people. Now, most of us, if we're going to be choosing a company to work with, we want to work with an expert. Okay, you can create that persona of being the expert by producing useful content and information. You can do it via your website, via a blog. You could do a webinar in your local area. You know, for some of you in areas where there are still local newspapers with property sections, they are often looking for an expert to write in there some editorial for them in the property section. Are you speaking to all of those publications and saying, I'm an expert, I can write content that will be of interest to people? Because if you can start to build your online presence, your physical print presence, on top of all the other contact strategies that we can look at, then people will find you. They will look you out. They might want to ask you some questions. They might want to understand or to know a little bit more. And in the context of that, you might win them as a client. So become the expert in your local area. Use whatever medium you can and you need to in that area to promote yourself as an expert in an arena where the people that you want as customers and clients will see you. And it's an awful lot of work. You know, this is all on top of the day job. This is all on top of a day job that runs into an evening job. I do completely understand that. There's a huge amount to it. But this is what we've got to do if we want to win over new customers. And again, if we want to retain the existing ones that we have. Okay, so before we move on to questions, just really to kind of summarize a little bit. Point number one, understand what it is your clients want. It's going to be slightly different with most of them, but really understand how you can make the life of a letting agent, a private landlord, I don't know, whoever your client is, whoever your target client is, how can you make their life a bit easier? Understand what they want, what they need. Point number 2, get really clear about how you can help them. Really clear about the benefit to them. You know, remember the benefit does. It's what is it going to do for me? That's what I'm looking at if I'm a customer. What's it going to do for me? So you need to be really, really clear when you're talking to me, what is it that my service will do for you? How will it help you? Number 3, decide who you want to help. It's not going to be everybody. Look at the agents that you really want to work with, or the customers, whatever that profile is, the ones you really want to work with. Go for the low-hanging fruit if there is some there, some that have already indicated an interest. Go back to them with this new proposition, this new way of putting things forward. Number 4, build a presence where they will see you. It could be online, it could be in print, it could be that you walk down the high street with an A board on that says, I have the best inventory company ever, ask me why. I don't know, it's going to be different for everyone, and we all like doing things in different ways. I would suggest to you that if you're looking at building that presence, try and do it in as many ways as you can, so people can't miss you, so that you are there. But importantly, what you want to do is you want to be the expert. You want to be seen as that expert in that that area where you work. And point number 5, get a communication strategy. You know, and all that really comes down to is how are you going to connect with these customers that you want to work with? And as I've said beforehand about building a presence, you know, it doesn't have to be in one way. It doesn't have to be that you send me, you know, huge numbers of emails. It doesn't have to be that you call into my office. It doesn't have to be that you write something in the local papers, but it could be an amalgamation of all of those things. So that wherever your customers go, wherever they look to seek or to find information, they find somewhere that you are there, that you have an opinion, that you've offered that opinion. And one of the best ways to sell things to people, I think, these days, is to provide them with free help and advice. If you can provide customers with free help and advice and ask nothing in return for it, but they are aware of the fact that you have, you know, your inventory business that is there and they're able to use it, then if you've provided that free help and advice, when they need somebody, the chances are they will think of you. But this isn't a one-off thing. This isn't a one-off hit. This isn't something that you can just do once. Once you've got these strategies in place, you need to continually do them. You need to keep writing content. You need to keep in contact regularly. You need to keep coming up with new, compelling reasons about why you do what you do, why you're the best at what you do, and how your service helps your customers better than anyone else. Just before I bring that to a close before the questions there, I do think the whole idea of getting your existing customers to explain to you why they use you is a very, very strong and compelling way of bringing new customers in. And indeed, if you can get testimonials from your customers, if you can publish those testimonials, even if you anonymize them because they could be competing companies, you know, or letting agents in the market that you work in. But again, if someone else says how good you are, I'm far more likely to believe that than you telling me. Okay, that sort of brings us to a close. We're about 40 minutes in now, and I'm just looking over at Steve to see if there is anything that we need to answer. I do have one question which I'm going to start off with, which I knew at the very beginning, and this one, this is actually
yeah, so that was fantastic, Tim. Thanks very much. Yeah, if you looked away or took a phone call for a second, you probably missed some really good information there. I think, Tim, you seem to have done this before.
Yeah, a couple of times.
Brilliant. So yeah, we're gonna take some questions. There's a few questions here, of course. If you have any more, you didn't get a chance, or obviously for those that missed the webinar and watching this the recording, feel free to post those through any time. We're always here as Imagery Basic Academy to help you with your business, with your day-to-day. Sean, if you can hear us, we have a couple of questions that you've gathered. If you want to ask them now.
Can you hear me okay?
Can you hear Sean?
I can't.
I'm taking my headset. Beautiful thing on top of my head.
Oh.
Hello, Sean.
Hello there, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, yes.
Oh, hello there, hi. One of the questions that was posed is, how do you overcome the objection, we're happy with our current provider? And that's something I have had so many times. I lose count, I really do. What I've found is hard sell doesn't work. You know, you try and there say, well, you know, take me on, I'll do this for you, I'll do that for you, and you almost sound as if you're desperate. What I've found in my personal experience is say, not a problem, that's fine, but give them a card, give them a contact point. Say, look, you know, if you get really busy, or if you need a hand, or if there's any issues, I'm here, I'm available, and just make them aware that, you know, you're not there to just sell your way, you're there to do a job, and that you're going to be helpful to them, and they get that impression. And when you're being not forceful with your sales technique, and you're just saying, look, I'm here if you want me, give me a shout, etc. And I've actually gained quite a few clients by doing that, by making myself available, especially when we get to, like, we're at the end of the month, everything is going absolutely crazy, everybody needs everything now, and all of a sudden you've got no one to do the job that you need to do. So they'll remember you, and they go, oh, hang on a minute, go grab your card, give you a ring, and then you just make yourself available. Now, that's always well and good if you are available, but if you're busy, it's not so great. But certainly in the beginning of your relationship with the client, if you can provide that level of service straight away at that end of that phone call, that will go a huge way. And I can honestly say, one of our clients, we did that. In fact, I think it was my first ever client. We did a job for him, and then about 2 years later on, he moved over to a very big social housing client, and he took us with him, and we're now the only provider for him, and we're managing around about 500 properties on average every year on a new build scheme that they're doing. So I would definitely suggest, you know, not hard to sell as such, you know, be available to them, be helpful to them, and they'll remember you that way.
No, I think you're absolutely right. It's very much the case that if you try and hard sell people, they're going to just immediately clam up and not want to really talk to you. But I think, you know, by saying that we can help you when you're busy, or if you've got staff off sick or on holiday, making yourself available, as you say, is a brilliant way of doing it. I think that there was a question earlier on. I think that one of the things from my point of view is to really agree with the customer, you know, because if they say that we're happy with who we're currently working with, and you know who that is, you know, just to let them know that actually, well, you know, we do understand they're a really great company. So agree with the customer, because they're not always expecting you to do that. You might at that stage want to say to them, well, you know, what is it you really love about them? Because we hear all sorts from different customers, and they might be able to tell you something that company does that you don't do. Or you may know something, if you know your competition well enough, you may know something that you do that they don't do. And you might just want to drop that into the conversation and then just let it rest there for a little while. But I think you're absolutely right, Sean. What you don't want to go in with is any hard sell, because you know, they're going to show you the door immediately. So a nice, soft, gentle approach, agree with the customer, offer to help in any way you can, and then keep in touch, have that contact strategy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they, you know, knowing when to stop. Initially, when you first start out, you just need to, you're kind of thinking, I've got to get everybody, and I've got to have everybody, and everybody on my list I've got to speak to, and they've got to listen to me. And sometimes you have to kind of take a step back and understand the verbal communication, so the non-verbal communication you're seeing, you know, how they're interacting, whether they're talking to you, whether they seem like they're interested or not, and know when to back off and know when to give that card over and leave. Say thank you very much for your time, and then go. But then, you know, revisit maybe at a later stage, just so that they remember who you are, they know you're still available, you know, they know that you're still able to help them if they need it. And that builds a lot of bridges, rather than someone trying to stand there go, no, you've got to take my card, and you've got to answer my questions, and you've got to tell me why, and I'm going to fix everything for you, and they just switch off. And I've seen that done, and I've probably done it myself, to be honest.
I think it's the only way you learn, though, isn't it? At the end of the day, you have to kind of go through it. But you're absolutely right. You know, it's selling these days. It's about a sort of consultant type sale. It's about helping the client rather than, you know, trying to sell them things.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the other questions was, how does an inventory clerk differentiate themselves from others who might all use a similar or same software when clients might think they can just use the software themselves. Obviously that's quite a long one, but in the main, for me, it's about the quality and the detail of the report, what you can add to it, what you're showcasing in regards to the report itself, the type of information you're providing, and making sure it's speaking to them in as much as it is what they want. So one of the first questions I always say, what do you want from the report? What do you want us to say? Do you want it very detailed? Do you want it very light? Do you want it very generalistic, or do you want it very specific? And I find with a lot of our clients, they tend to chop and change, but also not quite sure themselves what they want. So it's about asking that question and then delivering to what they want, that specification. I mean, we've gone through quite a few different platforms, if I'm honest, to the point to where we came to IB, because every platform is slightly different, every app provider is slightly different, and sometimes you've got to go through these different iterations to work out what it is that you actually need and what the client needs and how you're actually going to provide it. And I think it's just about sitting down with that client and saying to them, okay, this is what I've got, this is what I can do, what else would you like it to do? And then working out, you know, how it fits in with them. I've got one client who absolutely loves the platform, but still likes to email me and wants me to book the reports in via email, which is fine. You know, if that's what they want. Others rely on the system all the time.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it's, you know, being able to customize and to provide a, you know, a lighter report or a more detailed report. I think all of those things are really important. But I think as well that we have to remember that the customer is fundamentally buying us. So I've spoken to agents in the past where they haven't used a certain inventory provider, because you know, that inventory provider maybe we used earlier on, Sean, actually was, you know, sort of insistent about you've got to take my card, you've got to listen to what I say. So I think that, you know, technology is brilliant, absolutely. There's some incredible things, but I think, you know, a lot of the time the client buys us and then the client stays with us because of who we are, because of our integrity, because of our honesty, because of our desire to help them, that we're not just all about you know, the sale and taking their money, and I guess the passion that we have for the job that we do. You know, if we love what we do, it comes across. There's no two ways about that. If I'm trying to choose between a couple of companies and there's someone that is, you know, sort of, if you like, back in that salesperson mold that you mentioned, Sean, and there's somebody else there that clearly loves what they do, understands my problems, can show me how they can solve and do some of the sort of deal with some of the issues that I might have in my business, then I'm going to go with that person with a great attitude, that's a problem solver that I want to work with every single time. So I think that combination, technology and a great attitude, is a really winning formula.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one other thing also is don't wait for the problem. Quite often we're looking at assets, we're looking at the bookings, we're looking at what's coming up, and we're looking at potential issues that we think is going to be a potential issue for the client and for the tenant. And we're saying to them, okay, well, you know, we're ringing them and saying to them, were you aware? Did you know? Or we think this might happen and this is our solution. So you're not waiting for something to happen, you're actually ringing them up and saying to them, well, actually, we think that's going to be a problem, but that's the solution already there for you. Yeah,
absolutely. I think, you know, we all want to work with people that find solutions. So yeah, I think that's a really valid point. And again, it's about the fact of, you know, that tells me something about the person that I'm working with. If they're you know, they're proactive rather than reactive, they're trying to help me in my business, I'm far more inclined to want to work with you.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And I certainly find personally that works really well. And I've got one client who does text me late at night, but that's fine because that's what he does, and we get things sorted, and he's one of our biggest clients. So, you know, I'm willing to go that extra mile because it's worthwhile for both him, me, the customer, and obviously our clerks.
Yeah, I think it's the key thing. You know, I'm saying that people won't contact you late in the evening, but when it's a big customer and it's an important part of your business, then, you know, you're happy to do it. It's important, as you say, Sean.
Yeah. I think that's all the questions that I've got on my side of things.
Okay, well, I'm going to hand the headphones back over to Steve and just check and see if there's anything else there with him. So I'll pass those over.
Again, great information there, Tim. Thanks for handling that one, Sean. And yeah, that wraps up tonight, unless you want to add anything else, Sean?
No, I think that was really helpful, and a lot of the things Tim has been saying, especially in the beginning of the webinar, if I'd known that when I first started out, that would have been absolutely invaluable and would have probably helped me not make so many mistakes from the beginning. So I think it's really useful. It'd be worthwhile people going back through the slides just to remember exactly what's been said and take on board some of the points.
Absolutely, yeah. And the recording will be with everyone who registered for the webinar. So again, thank you to everyone who spent the time this evening joining us, and we look forward to the next one. Thanks everyone, and take care.